pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, starting on my right.
Councilperson Brett Fire.
Mayor Jimmy John King. Councilperson Craig Anderson.
Councilperson Jeremiah Olchin.
Looking for approval of tonight's agenda. Anything from staff?
Shouldn't be anything additional.
Anything here? We've got a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Approval of council meeting minutes of December 10th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Finance and budget, we got the accounts payable with the additional listing. Any questions? Directing to finance and budget. Carla, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion on accounts payable? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? That carries. I'll take us right into motions of general business. The first thing under motions of general business tonight is the 2020 appointments and meeting dates. Mayor submitted his 2020 appointments and designations for your consideration. The 2020 meeting schedule is also part of this packet. Please note that due to the primary election in August, we will hold our first meeting on Wednesday, August 12th, and our December meeting will be held on the 15th. Now, we all had the opportunity to read through the appointments and the meeting schedule, so the council action request is to approve 2020 appointments and 2020 meeting schedule is submitted. Any questions? Looking for a motion?
Make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? That will carry. Next item is 2020 insurance and tort liability. Alicia Nelson from First American Insurance is attending our meeting. She's going to give us a detailed review of her 2020 insurance coverage, and we'll discuss the municipal tort liability options. Alicia, it's all yours.
Thank you. So I'm excited to continue to service your insurance policies this year. You're a great team to work with, and I appreciate how proactive and responsive you guys always are to work with. As far as your 2020 renewal goes, there's going to be an average rate increase for members with property and casualty coverage of 4.5%, and a property rate increase of 6% and a liability rate increase of 6%. The work comp increase will be 9%, but because your premiums are affected, like things, changes you're making, expenditures, property values, payroll differences, and experience rating, like claims experience, things like that. That's not to say that you're going to see those exact changes, because we have kind of a lot of different changes coming down the pipe, but that's an average of what you might see as soon as we complete the renewal information and a little more. As far as the tort liability waiver, each year you have to decide if you want to waive statutory tort limits or not. If a member does not waive the statutory tort limits, an individual claimant against the city would recover no more than $500,000 in any one claim that a tort limit applies to. If the member or the city waives the statutory tort limits and does not purchase excess liability coverage, a single claimant could recover up to $2 million for a single occurrence. So as in previous years, I recommend that you do not waive the statutory tort limits so that a claimant would be subject to only $500,000 on any one claim. Any questions?
Any questions from here? All right, we have two actions. First would be to approve Alicia Nelson as city's insurance agent for 2020.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Second will be to approve or deny the resolution on municipal tort liability. To not waive.
Correct.
We have a motion and discussion. Any questions on that?
I'll make that motion.
To not waive?
Second.
We got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That also carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to working with it.
As am I.
All right, takes us on to our next one. Next item under general business is Knolls of Northridge Southern Hills Expansion Project. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 6th to take comments regarding expansion of Southern Hills Northridge Manufacturing Home Park. On December 2nd, they continued their meeting to consider the Knolls of Northridge subdivision. Conditional use permit is per section 1335.04, zoning change map amendment from R1 to R3. GDP amendment, preliminary plat approval. We have the minutes for both meetings in our packet. Attached, you will find the revised layout of the plan submitted on 12/2, along with their explanation regarding the changes. Also attached, please find additional comments that have been received since the public hearing. Planning Commission is recommending to deny the zone change map amendments from R1 to R3, to deny the GDP amendment, preliminary plat conditional use approval based on the following findings of facts. Based on public testimony received regarding potholes, broken windows, flooded roads, and other maintenance issues, the existing manufactured home park owned and operated by Sun Communities, the proposed project is unlikely to be operated and maintained to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing intended character of the surrounding area, particularly the adjacent Peterson subdivision. The proposed project will not be adequately served by essential public facilities and services, including police and fire, schools, discussed by Sheriff Torgerson and Superintendent Selfers during the public hearing on November 6th. Stewartville will most likely need an additional dedicated deputy, and the school district would unlikely be able to absorb the increase in students in a short amount of time as projected. So the next one, proposed project will create excessive additional requirements and public costs for public facilities and services and would be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. Lastly, the proposed project may create additional traffic congestion and interference with traffic on surrounding public thoroughfares by increased traffic. Justin Crable of Atwell LLC will be in attendance with other Sun Community representatives to present their project and answer any questions. Justin?
Actually, Howard Roston is going to present. You want me from here, or you want me to see where?
Wherever's handy is for you, you got a lot of stuff to lay out there.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Howard Roston, I'm attorney representing the applicant here. We are here with some information and to urge that the City Council grant the entitlements that are requested by Sun Communities. As a matter of housekeeping first, what I'd like to do is hand out 2 volumes of books we'd ask to include in the public record. Do you want those, or should I give them to the clerk?
That's good.
So I'll go through these in a minute to make a record. And then for the city council members, I've got the same thing on thumb drives right here. Would the clerk like a thumb drive as well for your file?
Thank you.
In addition to that, for the public record, I'll be handing out a letter from Atwell. This one for the official record, don't you? And I've got one for each of the council members as well. what I have done is provide for you a letter from Justin here, Mr. Crable, that outlines what our position is, and it's not my intention to read this letter verbatim. It's my intention to go through it in a little bit of detail, and then if the council has any questions, we're happy to answer the questions. The first thing I'd like to do is take the council through a little bit of the history here, remind the council that there's been a full EAW that's been prepared, and a negative declaration of the EAW that was issued by the city council after a public process. Just because I think we're on a record here, an EAW, as you know, is an environmental assessment worksheet. The purpose of the environmental assessment worksheet is to determine whether or not to do an additional environmental impact statement, otherwise known as an EIS. And the EIS itself, with all the supporting information and data, is included in the binders along with things like geotechnical evaluations, traffic evaluations, and related matters that are now part of the public record if they weren't. The EAW studied things like water resources, traffic, geology, soils, stormwater, and a whole host of other items. And what's important, at least to address one of the issues that we've heard repeated that we don't think is supported by the record, is that according to the EAW, which the city then adopted in a negative declaration, the overall impact of the project is minimal compared to existing traffic volumes and operations at Trunk Highway 63 and 20th Street. In other words, the city's own consultant that it hired, SEH, which I think the city would agree is a reputable engineering firm, concluded that the traffic impacts, if any, were minimal or non-existent. The city adopted a resolution, 2019-25, that's dated October 22nd, 2019, concluding that the project does not have the potential for significant environmental impacts. And again, those evaluated environmental impacts include the whole litany of things that go through an EAW. I'm not going to go back and read them again, but it's a comprehensive look at environmental impacts. So I do understand that there's been a lot of speculation from the public about this, but the city's own consultant concluded that there was nothing to worry about with respect to this, with this project. I'd then like to point out what has already been told to you by Ms. Leff, am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
The city attorney, with respect to manufactured housing communities. And what the city attorney has told you is the city's zoning regulations may not prohibit manufactured homes built in conformance with the manufactured home building code and in compliance with all other zoning ordinances. She went on to tell you that the city cannot regulate a manufactured home more strictly than single-family homes in the cities. For example, the city cannot require that homes within a manufactured park be owner-occupied. In other words, the city needs to evaluate this and make a decision not based on citizen opposition, which is never an appropriate reason to deny a zoning request, but on the facts and evidence that are before the city. The facts from the EAW indicate there's no environmental impact, and the city attorney's own legal advice tells you you can't treat this differently than single-family homes. So then we look through the city's ordinances. The two city ordinances are 1375-18 and 1375-19 as identified by the city attorney. And the question is, what do those ordinances require, and do we meet those ordinance requirements with respect to the conditional use permit? Those are on page 3 and 4, starting on page 3 of this letter. I will note that there's been some criteria identified that we don't think is appropriate to consider in connection with the CUP. Regardless, we're addressing those criteria, and even whether they're required or not, we satisfy them. For example, the park owner must at all times maintain a license from the Minnesota Department of Health. We will and do comply with that. The park owner shall comply with all, I'm not going to read every single one of them to you. The park owner shall comply in all respects with the manufactured home building code. we do and will comply with the building code. The park owner shall not alter any homes if the alteration causes the homes to be in violation of the manufactured home building code. Again, the applicant will comply and does comply with that. Those are, those 8 comments we derived from a letter from your city attorney, and we addressed all 8 of them in our letter. And again, we're happy to talk about them in detail. With respect to the criteria in the city's zoning ordinance, those start in the middle of page 4. Each lot shall have 2 off-street parking spaces. Our plan meets or exceeds the parking requirements in the city's zoning code. The plan requires, or the ordinance requires a buffer. We've shown how we're going to provide a buffer, and our plan satisfies the buffer. There was a question raised about whether or not the proposed storm shelter for our project met the city's ordinance requirements, and the answer is it does, and it exceeds it as well. The storm shelter is about 600 square feet bigger than what would be required by the bare minimum in the city's own ordinance. Is that right? 500 megawatts? Yep. Trash and refuse disposal, these are in 1375-18, must be in adequately sized bins in a walled or fenced area within 150 feet of each lot. We can and will comply with that requirement. Now, on this particular one, we happen to think that there is a better and less intrusive way to handle trash, and we are prepared to discuss with the city what we think is a better alternative to this. But if the city wants to hold us to the plain language of the ordinance, which it can do in this circumstance, then we will meet the ordinance. There's restrictions on recreational vehicles and trailers. That's our comment E, I believe, and we do and will comply with those requirements. The layout and site plan, again, I'm not reading all of these, is required to provide open space. That's towards the bottom of page 5. We discussed that. The plan submitted exceeds the required open space requirements by something like 110,000 square feet. I'm generalizing, 110,000 square feet. And then we turn to chapter 1375-18 of the city's code, which has some requirements as well, and I'll address those. First, the project has more than 20 manufactured housing lots. All of the building heights will comply with the requirements in the city's zoning code. The requested uses are those uses that are allowed in the zoning code. Each manufactured home lot is more than 4,000 square feet and has an open area of no more than 50%. In fact, we exceed the city's own open space requirements by about 1,000 square feet per lot. I think all of them are over 5,000 square feet, so we're 20% or so more than what's required in the city's zoning codes. And then the spacing guidelines of 25 feet are all met, as well as 20 feet for front yards. We have identified then some additional information in response to the ordinance in 1375-18E with respect to, again, parking spaces. Some of this is duplicative because I was picking it up from 2 different places and responding to it. Streets shall be provided in the park. The internal street system shall provide convenient and safe circulation. Again, I think the EAW answers that question. We are building a new street through the subdivision as part of this project. Drainage is being handled as required by the city ordinance. And then number 5, no manufactured home shall be erected on a lot except to meet all uniform building codes. We do and will comply with that. I'm going to skip some that we've discussed. We talked about the storage shelter. We haven't talked about it, but I believe the city engineer one of the last planning commission hearings confirmed that there's sufficient services, sanitary, sewer, and water available to the community. And then we talked about trash again. I think there's a better way to do that. That's on page 7. With respect to the subdivision requirements, that's in 1375-19 of the city's code. There are no fewer than 15 manufactured housing lots. With respect to the property that's already zoned R3, the R3 standards are met. All homes will have an anchoring system as required. All homes will have skirting that meets or exceeds applicable building codes. And then the manufactured homes will be the exclusive type of dwelling in here. With respect to some of the issues that were raised by either planning commission members or members of the public, again, we don't believe these are criteria that are part of the CUP requirements, but there's been a question about some communities and its investment in the area. The first thing I could do is call your attention to the About Us section in our book if you want to look at who Sun Communities is. I think I left some of the pages out of that. I might have to have you come up and explain more about Sun Communities and then we can talk about that. But Sun Communities is a nationwide reputable owner, developer, and operator of manufactured housing communities. Kevin, are you the largest in the country? I think we're the largest ones in the country. I think we have more units in the country than anybody else. In any event, we're large, sophisticated in what we're doing, and we know how to operate these properties. In terms of investment that Sun Communities has put into this area since it has owned this property, they've spent just under $2 million. The last tab in your book is entitled Investment. There's been $450,000 spent on road replacements, $300,000 on sidewalks and driveways, $230,000 for a new swimming pool, $340,000 to remodel the clubhouse and mail center, $100,000 in signage and landscape improvements, $90,000 in tree removal, and $20,000 for a new basketball court. And we are expected in 2020 tree work of another $100,000 and another $75,000 in road replacement infrastructure. We have carefully looked at the meeting minutes from the planning commission meetings, and in particular, how the meeting minutes report what the sheriff and school superintendent said. I believe it was the sheriff, not the police chief. Sheriff. We respectfully disagree with the meeting minutes. We think the meeting minutes mischaracterize and misstate what some of the city's own consultants and experts testified to at these proceedings. I think that there's been a lot of misinformation that has been presented to the council. I think for whatever reason, there is a general bias against manufactured housing communities. We respectfully disagree with those who have biases against this type of community. We are a good operator. We fill a need that is required in this area for affordable and decent housing, and we respectfully request that the council grant the entitlements that are requested by some communities. And with that, I don't have anything else prepared to say. We have a team of people here who are prepared to answer questions, and certainly, Justin, if I misstated anything, please let me know. Thank you.
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Any questions about I'm having a little trouble with this thumb drive deal. What's on there?
It's everything in these two binders. And I suggest you find an 18-year-old kid like I did to help you figure out how to work the technology.
I believe it. Questions over at the table?
For what it's worth about those discs, if for some reason those don't work, I can have my office set up a link, and you can have the city attorney call me, and I can set a link up, and we can handle it that way.
computers don't like me too much, so.
That's why I have kids, so I can use my technology.
Questions for Justin and the attorney? Are we still pretty hung up on 300? I mean, that's what it's gotta be, that's the number, is that what you guys are still saying?
Well, I'll tell you what I always, my position always was when I sat in your, well, not your commission, when I sat in the planning commission, which is I'm not really interested in having my client negotiate details of development in a public forum like this, because I think there's a lot of moving parts. Having said that, we will consider any reasonable requests that allow the project to go forward, but it's hard for us in this room to say yes or no to any particular item because there's moving parts all over the place.
I actually thought we would hear something from you over a period of time since the last meeting. I just thought maybe Justin would send, if you decided to change anything or revise anything else or anything like that.
We revised it once, we submitted a supplemental plan in response to what we thought were some comments that we could respond to. All of these issues, I mean, there's no secret to any of this, all of these issues have economic impacts that I, as a lawyer, certainly am not gonna make a decision on the fly at a public meeting like this on behalf of my client.
I respect that, maybe you guys had a number in your head since the last time we spoke to you, because that question was raised at the P and Z meeting. So I just checked. You guys got nothing up here?
Well, I don't think it's any secret that I guess it's my 6th year on city council, and there's been a few surprises to me that have really got the city in an uproar that have come up, but nothing's been anywhere near as negative as this. I mean, not even close. My email just blows up nonstop. And part of it ticks me off because I do believe what you guys are saying, that there's this negative stigma about manufactured homes, and I don't think that's fair. I do believe it's more affordable housing, but man, I've been trying to research this since this has been going on. People are going to pay $120,000 for the manufactured home, and then they have to pay $495 for their lot rent. I don't know how affordable that is. I don't know if that checks the box for affordable housing. My personal opinion, I'm not an expert in that, and obviously at the hearing we heard both sides. So, and in fact, research shows there's arguments all over the place on that. I feel that this is a ton of lots crammed in there. I know that's been a question that we've talked about from the beginning, that it's a lot at one time. I understand your letter points out that the calls for servicing of the sheriffs and the need for another deputy and the statements by the school superintendent are incomplete, I think you put, or not fully vetted probably as far as the growth to the school. But that certainly is a real life concern of mine. Up doing that stuff, the traffic, I agree again, the AW shows that it might not have a huge impact, but it does admit that there is going to be an impact, and there is already, we see that. Especially with the other road that was closed to the south this year, and I see how the traffic backs up at 20th Street. And as far as rezoning, personally, the rezoning part of it, it's a hands down, I'm against that. I don't see any reason for it. The other part is maybe open to discussion. I respect that the attorney doesn't want to discuss any potential development changes, that this is not the place for that. But I'm still left with a lot of questions.
Right?
I think I got all my questions answered through B and Z in multiple meetings. I again thought that I agree with you, Jimmy John, that I figured we'd hear something between the last B and Z and now.
Josh, you got any comments?
Yeah, I think it does come down to the affordability aspect. I did a little research today and I looked, if people buy a mobile home like this and they pay $100,000, how much is that house going to be worth in 5 years? And all the research that I found showed me that it's going to depreciate every year by 5%. So if they pay $100,000 after 5 years, it's worth $75,000. That, to me, that's not a good investment for the might be good for you guys, but I think for our citizens that live there, I don't think it's gonna be very good.
Do you want me to respond to that, Mr. Mayor?
If you'd like.
I guess what I would say is, as far as I can tell from your own ordinances, one of the conditions for the CUP does not include affordability to individuals or affordable housing. Having said that, that's some community's risk, right? I mean, if these guys do this and the project fails because they don't read the market right, that's not a municipal decision in my mind, that's a market, that's a free market decision. If these guys think they can make money building gold-plated manufactured housing, they'll do it, and if they make a bad mistake, the market will let them know. But that's really not in the city's CUP ordinance as a relevant consideration, it's a market issue.
Could I ask why some communities, have you ever done a park or considered doing a park where you actually sell the lot, so that people have more of a vested interest in their community instead of just rental?
No, that would be a third-party management decision. While we probably have managed communities for other people that ask us to come in and manage, we don't have anything under contract anywhere that is under that type of a setup. Certainly, we have 430 of them right now in most every state in the country, and we have found them to be viable everywhere. It's certainly an entry-level home ownership position. So, you know, when you say that it's priced out of a market, I don't believe that it would be priced out of this market. And $120,000 homes aren't always the norm. I mean, we sell new homes, you know, in the 90s and 80s. So it's hard for me to understand where like that number would come from. Granted, we do sell homes in some states that exceed $180,000, and in parts of Florida, you know, on waterfront that are probably close to $300,000. But then that's not the norm. The norm is typically under $100,000, and we've had a very good reception in that price range, and I don't expect that it would be anything different here.
I have no idea what price range. Affordable housing is a subject I don't even like to talk about, because what's affordable to me is not affordable to someone else, and what they can afford is not. Why I asked is I've toured a couple other ones up in the Rochester area where they own their lots, they're manufactured home lots, or parks, and they've even gone as far as to set them up as it looks just like a residential area. Streets, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, entirely just like a regular city street or city residential area. They also let them build stick-built homes right amongst them, because they do own the lot. And the reason I ask that is, they have increased in value. The ones I looked at, they've actually gained some increase because they own the dirt. That seems to be a big hang-up for people. Secondly, they're landscaped a lot more like a regular residential lot and things such as this. There seems to be way more ownership than in a rental property where you're gonna move me out in a couple months, what do I care anyhow? If you understand what I'm getting at there. That's why I was wondering if there's ever any talk amongst you since the last one about changing this into more of a residential type looking area with the opportunity, you don't all have to buy, but with the opportunity to own the dirt that the home is on. It just seems, I understand you have your business plan, I'm just asking you if you've ever tossed this around or done it anywhere else.
Well, there are, those communities do exist out there where the lots have been purchased by people that own their homes, and they turn into a homeowner association, and they're self-ruled in that manner. I don't know anybody that has made a business plan to set them up that way, because it would be no different than setting up a subdivision only selling it as manufactured. You probably wouldn't put in HUD code homes, you would put in BOCA homes in that circumstance as well, which would also increase the cost of the home, but there's nothing preventing that from happening in other parts of this, this community. But I don't, it's not something that we do as a REIT, and certainly I don't know how legally it would work for us to even try to do something like that, because we're bound by laws of the REIT to operate in a certain fashion and only own certain types of land and leasing types. In other words, I can't all of a sudden start building strip malls and things like that, because the REIT doesn't allow that to happen. You wouldn't want to be an investor if I decided to start going off in different tangents and doing different things. But certainly, I mean, could it exist? It could exist. It's just not something that we've set up a model for.
Jeremiah, you got any questions?
No questions. I am hung up on this one in our point in our ordinance. Under standards, there's the bulleted list of requirements. And requirement E will not create excessive additional requirements at public cost for public facilities and services that will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. I feel like that requirement is not necessarily being met with what we've heard from the sheriff and from the superintendent of schools. That's a hang up on it for me.
And I guess in response to that, I'd point out the sheriff said there's no more indication of calls to manufactured housing communities in any other type of area in the city. And school superintendent, I believe she said when there was a 70 lot expansion, I could be wrong, but I think it was a 70 lot expansion, didn't experience any particular impact on the schools themselves. Not only that, as the city attorney told you, you can't treat this differently than you would a single family neighborhood. And I would submit to you that if this were a single family neighborhood, we wouldn't be sitting here discussing impacts on.
I think we would if we tried to put 300 houses in that amount of property. Makes a big difference. And I do think, I know what the superintendent did say, and she did say that the last expansion didn't hit them as hard as they thought. But the reality is they still have to prepare, and we have to be cognizant of the numbers that come in studies of what the average number of children potentially per household are. Just like you guys have to be. I mean, it's not an easy decision. I'm not for it the way it is now, but I know that. It's a lot.
Can I ask the attorney or you, on the delinquent tax side of it, do you guys collect the delinquent tax to pay the portion to us as delinquent, or are we able to assess the manufactured community as we do homes in town that become delinquent on taxes? Because there is, as you know, all these cases, people come and go and bills don't get paid and such. So say, there is a record of some here that delinquent taxes due in 19 or due in 18. How do we collect them, or do you collect them for us? That's a question. Now, we all know the taxes aren't as great on them as others, but still, any portion that we don't receive is a portion that would help offset some of these other costs we're talking about. Do you, any of you have an answer how we go about delinquent taxes, or does our attorney know?
If you can assess the underlying property, if it's owned by the manufactured home, then it would be assessable pursuant to the ordinance, to the manufactured home part.
And I would defer to your city attorney on this. I don't want to certainly represent anything here, and I'm not. I think there's two different issues. One is the land and one is the structure itself. So I think there's two different issues there.
But if you're the owners of the rental property, is what I'm saying, and you're renting it, it's-
Presumably, the county and the city would have the same rights they would have for every other type of property. If someone doesn't pay their taxes, and whether it's an apartment building, a single-family home, manufactured housing community, people don't pay their taxes. At least from my experience, the government has all sorts of fun things it can do to collect.
Any other questions from this table? This table prepared to make a vote? So I'd ask for a motion.
I make a motion to deny the rezoning.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to deny. Are you talking just about the one parcel, or are you talking about?
That is his thing.
That's the only.
That's the only reason.
Okay. There's a motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Opposed? That carries. Denied. Approve or deny. Next motion is approve or deny the GDP amendments and preliminary plat conditional use. Motion.
I'll make a motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That also was denied.
Can I clarify, is that based on the findings of facts that was presented
Through planning, so.
by planning and zoning?
So two motions we have in front of us, correct? You have any further?
Was that in denial of the CUP?
We denied the zone change amendment. We denied the GDP amendments and preliminary conditional use.
Is there a copy of the resolution?
We can give that to you.
You want to know why they're not here?
All right. With that, will now take us to mayor, staff, and consultant reports. Mayor's report today. City of Stewartville would like to send our sympathies to the families of Mary Ann Thompson-Williams, Lucille Dagan, Melvin Eichhoff, Douglas Cone, Sharon Radke, Sue Luck, Francis Andhurst, Violet Gleason, Joyce Moreland, Sharon Murray, Sandy Fritz, and Warren Severson. But we'd like to send out a happy 80th birthday to Ruth Kwan. If you see Ruth around town, give her a happy birthday wish. And Sportsman's Club will be holding their annual wild game feed this Saturday. And we would really, really like to send out congratulations to Peyton Moss. If you haven't met this young lady, she is she's going somewhere. She's a whirlwind. She recently created an art installation designed to capture the essence of what it's like to live in small town Stewartville. The project is called Through Our Eyes. There's a collection of 90 photographs of Stewartville with a description of what it means to live here. It's interactive. You move your hands around, all these pictures pop up, and it tells about it. The unveiling will be held this Friday, and it's featured at the Castle in Rochester. I believe that's at 5:30. This is just a fantastic project promoting Stewartville, and the community should be very, very proud of this. This display will also be shown in Stewartville. We'll have the details later on that. We got to see the unveiling of it at First Discovery Square. Very, very interesting, very, very talented young lady. That's all I've got. City Administrator's report.
Reports in your packet, just highlighting some things we'll kind of be looking at, probably with our workshop. So if any of you have ideas for us, let staff know, and we get that included on an agenda we're putting together for that. So that should actually do it.
Finance Director's report.
Right now, we're just working on getting the budget and getting all the expenses in from 2019 and moving forward to 2020. You guys have your new 2020 budgets there in your binders. Please let me know if you guys have any questions, concerns on anything.
All right, any questions for the Finance Director? All right, thank you, Carla. Sean, Public Works Director report.
It's been a busy week with snow. We've had a couple issues with trucks, which leads me to what I wanted to discuss. For the last couple of years, we have been looking at trying to get a used Hammond truck to replace one of ours to ease into this, trying to get new trucks on a 5-year rotation, so it fits an easier plan to budget for and all that. It just so happens today we were picking up the one that we had ordered, and I got a call about the City of Rochester truck that they were looking to trade into Peterbilt, and Peterbilt has agreed to do a pass-through on it, where they will not charge any above what they're taking in on trade-in on it, and the numbers we got on that, the price on it is very fair. I can't believe we could possibly get it for that. It's a 2009, 89,000 miles, which is minimal in a truck like that. Live bottom box in it, set up a sander, wing, plow, just like we normally would set up one of our plow trucks, and 28,000 is the price they gave it. I'd like to be able to move forward. I'd like to do an RCA on that maybe at the next meeting. I think that'll hold it for us.
WAOE silence alarm.
Do we have them as inspect or do an oil check or anything?
We've got the last 3 Rochester test the oil every time they change oil on the trucks. I've got their last 3 tests. I'm going to have Terry Timmerman look at it. They were putting a fan motor in it when we were up there. They've, all the records you can look at, they maintain their fleets. They actually have parking stalls for each truck with a wash bay right at each truck that they rinse them off every time they're done. The underside of the truck is, they're just in way better shape because of that stuff. They maintain them as good as anybody out there. And I feel it's, for what we've been looking for and for that price, other trucks we've looked at in the past for $60,000 for a used truck like that. So I just, for this price, I don't feel I would want to pass up the opportunity. Jason Walter and I went up there today and looked at it, and we both were in total agreement and kind of very happy if we could make the deal work. So,
You need a motion on that?
I don't, right now, we'll put an RCA together, but I wanted you guys to be aware, and we would present at the next meeting possibly and let them know that if there's enough interest there to continue on the paperwork and everything on it. Yeah. The agreement was they would have to get it running and we would have to approve. Obviously, we couldn't operate it today, but looking it over, Peterbilt did say it would still fall under their stipulations of having to get it up to snuff to make sure that everything's operational.
Bill?
About a year and a half ago, we had kind of presented the idea to the Finance Committee, Public Works Committee, and they were in favor of if we could find something that's in the mix of when we do new purchases, and it makes sense. There was agreement from all the councilors at that point in time that served on those committees to let us keep kind of pursuing it if it ever pops up.
And the numbers we were using at that time were 50,000.
Yeah, so this was dramatic.
Plus, we would turn around and be able to sell our truck, probably on public surplus, and recoup a fair amount on that.
You have my approval.
Sounds good to me.
Gotta talk to the money lady.
council pays, so.
Well, then we better vote to increase it like, Rochester.
Jeremiah,
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Josh,
Yeah, that's
All right.
good.
DNRC. Any questions for Sean? Thanks. You got the wastewater report in there, that's the annual report in there. Any questions on that? City engineers report, Jenny, you got anything tonight?
We are just continuously working on plans for next year and the year after for CIP. You might notice there's some digging going on, at Florence Park, going out towards the river. We're doing some investigations as to what kind of updates we wanna do to the sanitary sewer. And seeing if there would be rock in the way prior to actually making plans for construction. We're looking to try to lower the sanitary sewer in order to, make some improvements to some areas that are very shallow. However, we have to see how much rock there is and evaluate costs. So, if you get any questions on what we're doing, that's what we're working on.
Questions for the engineers?
How are the plans coming along?
They're coming along. It's twice as much work as we normally do to get these plans done compared to every year for our projects, so. We're gonna be sitting down with the Public Works Department here this month and going over plans. That'll be at about a 60% mark to get comments and concerns. We go through things.
All right.
When are we gonna decide about the underground for power?
Underground for power. We need, some more input from people, compared to the amount of, parcels on next year's project and the year after, percentage of how many people actually showed up at our public meeting. Compared to previous projects, we didn't have a very high percentage. So just in the feedback we got was about 50-50. So we're getting a questionnaire prepared to try and get more input.
Have the city send it out to everybody on
Yeah,
Bottom line, that's gonna be up to the power company.
yes,
That's not our decision to make, that's the power company's.
correct. But we're going to try and do what we can to help accommodate, especially due to the narrow right of way, so. The gas company also has concerns for where they're going to be, so.
All right. Any other questions for Jenna? Thanks, Jenna. No library director tonight, no fire chief tonight, unless you got something for him, Bill, yeah?
Not from either, the chief was trying to get here, but, just isn't
I'll
getting.
take us committee, commission, and board reports, Chamber of Commerce. Al, you still with there? EDA, HRA?
Meeting next week, right?
Next week, we got the CETA newsletter in there. And, we have a new member of the CETA team, joined us down here in Stewartville. Her name is Heather Holmes. Thank you, thank her for all the work she's gonna do for us. And she is.
I do that.
Finance? Library?
Nothing right now.
Park board?
Met last night, elected officers, and that's about it.
All right. Personnel? Anything coming up? Public safety? Nothing P and Z? Well, I think we're gonna have something. No, that's true, not P and Z. You got the minutes of December 2nd in there. Public Works? I just heard from Sean, some of their ideas. Ready?
Report this, meeting,
Roll call?
meeting coming up,
Stu 180.
Just a reminder, 66th Annual Eagles Cancer Telethon this weekend.
All right. Transit Advisory Committee.
There will be a report coming up, next meeting. Dan's, put together the minutes and a summary of their, most recent meeting.
Under Communications tonight, we got the SEMLM January 30th newsletter in there, annual meeting coming up on the 30th. Apache Hotel. If any of you wanna go, get a hold of Laurel, over at City Hall. Open mic. Anyone that would like to use the open mic, I'm welcome you to step up right now, we'll give you 4 minutes. You can state your case. I'm not gonna do anything about it tonight, I can tell you that right now. If you want your 4 minutes, now's the time to do it. Need your name and address, please.
Both
Jennifer
addresses.
Johnson, new address.
We need them both.
What? Yeah, both. I have 2 addresses. Oh my gosh, I have 2 houses. I just wanted to thank the council for your thoughtful questions and for really considering what was in front of you, with that expansion. We really appreciate you supporting how the community felt on that expansion project, so thanks to you guys.
I would ask one thing of you though while you're up there, we truly appreciate the people that did step up and ask questions and came to us and let us know their concerns.
Yeah.
I would ask you to go back to your neighborhoods, and I would request that some of your neighbors do some apologizing. I really don't appreciate when they start calling the staff names on the internet. Pretty easy to hide behind a computer screen instead of stepping up and doing the right thing. Mostly it was young ladies like you that stepped up and did the right thing. The guys that are supposed to be men all hide behind the screen. I do not appreciate it. You can say whatever you want about me, you can say whatever you want about these council members. You will not attack staff. I'll let each and every one of you know that, and I want that message taken back. So, if you'd please do that for me, I'd appreciate it. I'll see if any of them will step up and do the right thing of apologizing. I got my doubts. Would I be impressed if one of them did, or 2 of them? I thank you again.
Well, thank you guys.
Anybody else want to say anything?
No.
Take us to the last motion of the night. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.